This is a selection from Hold to the Center, Zen Advice for When Things Blow Up Around You, by Roshi Wendy Egyoku Nakao. She starts with a koan. A monk asked Jinghua Kunjiang, "What should one do when things come from every direction?" The master said, "Hold to the center." The monk bowed. The exact reasons that caused the monk to ask his question in this koan are unknown, but whatever the particulars were, we can all relate to circumstances that make us feel as if we've lost our center. The point of the koan is simple. When heavy rain and violent winds assault you, you know to seek the nearest shelter. How is it that you know what to do in a storm, and yet in other situations you feel as if you have lost any sense of what to do? As a member of the Zen Peacemaker Order, I have come to rely on what we refer to as the three tenets, which are not knowing, bearing witness, and taking action, as an effective way to hold to the center in any given situation. With regular application, the practice of the three tenets can become a way of living from the center at all times. Although the tenets are taken in order when you study them, the practice is not necessarily linear. Each tenet reflects the others. They are seamlessly embedded in each other, flowing as center, circumstance, and action in an ever-unfolding and endlessly varied cycle of life. Training with the tenets is a matter of taking a backward step again and again and continually discerning your internal process in the midst of acknowledging what is happening around you. When you hold to the center by engaging with these tenets, you let go of preconceived agendas about what needs to happen and your need to make it happen. The practice of the three tenets can become a way of living at the center at all times. An effect of ongoing and consistent practice of the three tenets is that when you do lose your sense of center and fall into reactivity, you also regain your center more quickly. And when you continually perform this practice in the midst of all the activities of your daily life, the practice will be readily available to you during the most challenging circumstances. Training with the tenets brings about resiliency of the spiritual muscles and an ever-deepening sense of reality. As life unfolds around you, the three tenets are active inside of you, always directing you back to the center so that you can carry out the Master's direction. When things come from you from all directions, hold to the center. So every Monday, I do a weekly tarot reading that lays out the week ahead. In the center is the signifier, the theme of the week. This week's signifier is the Fool. Pure innocence stepping off into the unknown. It didn't surprise me, because I'm here to talk about the first tenet, not knowing. Also expressed as beginner's mind, or, as our Dharma sister, Danny Fillmore, reminds us, stay curious. You can take the slide down, Janelle. In preparation for this service, I've been spending much time in not knowing, especially with respect to what the heck I wanted to say. Shunryu Suzuki famously said, "In the beginner's mind, there are many possibilities, but in the expert's, there are few." Not knowing is returning to a pure curiosity, setting aside assumptions, fixed ideas, opinions, fears, hoped for or dreaded outcomes. It's a flash of openness, going into the dark, back to the beginning when all is possible. Roshi Bernie Glassman, the founder of Zen Peacemakers and the Three Tenets practice, said, "The practice of not knowing isn't resignation. It's radical honesty. It's stepping out of the exhausting illusion that we can manage every outcome and instead meeting reality as it is. When we stop fighting what already is, we reclaim our energy for presence. From that place, compassion and wise action naturally arise." End of quote. Although the three tenets can help us guide us in our search for how to help heal what's broken in our world, I want to stay closer to home, to my small life. How to meet the Buddha, the divine, in those I love most dearly and those I perceive to be my enemies. I talk to my mom every day, and I spend more time with her than my siblings do. If I don't enter these conversations with not knowing and curiosity, I find myself bracing for and expecting what? Becoming concerned, annoyed, frustrated, bossy. Only by staying fresh and open with her can I bear witness to what she's saying and going through, and take compassionate action, which often is saying or doing nothing. There is much to be angry, scared, and righteous about, now more than any other time I can remember. I struggle with feeling like I need to do something big to turn around this dangerous situation we find ourselves in. But trying to figure that out isn't getting me anywhere. And letting hate live in my heart contributes to the violence I judge others for. What I can trust in is that each open and kind interaction I have contributes to peace. When I'm out and about, practicing not knowing brings out the sweetness we all crave. I chit-chat with strangers all the time. And when I encounter people who, from all appearances, seem to be the enemy for voting for and supporting the current regime, only by taking a breath, dropping into not knowing, staying curious, do I have any chance of seeing the divine in them. The phrase, "they just want what we want," starts to be real for me. Let me assure you, this is hard for me, really hard. But I don't see any other way. So I'll keep trying to stay open and curious. And I'll close with a quote from Lao Tzu. "Do you have the patience to wait until your mud settles and the water is clear? Can you remain unmoving until the right action arises by itself?"
As I start this talk, I want to give credit to the group Zen Peacemakers. They have a great website on this topic and many others. My section of this talk is on the second tenet, bearing witness. When we share joys and concerns during the service, we are bearing witness to the joys and concerns of our friends. Like a witness in court, we try to look at things clearly and understand what's going on. However, the witness on the stand is often looking at what they physically witnessed. In the second tenet, bearing witness, you also review what you think and feel about a situation. As you move from not knowing, you start to understand the situation. In many cases, this happens because life asks you to deal with a problem. Whether it is a date for a protest is coming up and you need to decide whether to attend, or an older family member needs to be moved to some type of care. You are forced from not knowing to bearing witness. You attempt to see all the aspects to ideas and judgments you are making, whether you are aware of those judgments or not. You attempt to understand the uniqueness of the situation you are in, plus your feelings and thoughts about that situation. If you spend time in the second tenet and you practice at it and get better at bearing witness, you will be making better choices and finding more joy in your choices. Let me give you an example. As a family gathers the facts about how to deal with the care of an elderly parent, you gain information from doctors and care facilities. But part of the information you need to gather must be recognizing that different family members have a different relationship to this parent. Also, you have feelings of your own about how to care for this parent. It gets complicated watching all those thoughts and feelings go by. Can you sit back and analyze your feelings without getting caught up in the feeling? Bearing witness strengthens your capacity to learn to see other points of view, and that helps you learn from them. As you sit within the issue and look at all of its mess, you also view it from an overlook. You need to pull out your feelings on the matter and attempt to understand how your feelings affect you and reflect how your worldview affects your thinking. With the elderly parent example talked about earlier, does your worldview see families as a unit, with each member doing what they can for each other? Or do you see the family members owe each other no loyalty or care? Those are deep questions that need to be answered as you collect outside information from doctors and care facilities. While we are talking about these three tenets in order, like 1, 2, 3, the reality of situations is that as you bear witness, you sometimes move back into not knowing and then back to bearing witness. One way to deal with the confusion of bearing witness is to meditate, which allows you to develop your awareness of your own thoughts and feelings. Practicing meditation is one way to prepare for difficult times. Recently, I had been deciding whether to retire this year or next year. I kept going around about what I wanted to do, and I'm sure friends were getting a bit tired of me talking on the topic as I moved back and forth with my decision. I finally stopped and said, "Why is this a hard choice? Why can't you make it?" It was that bearing witness to my own feelings that made the choice for me. Bearing witness is available to you regardless of the time, place, or people involved. If you practice this pause between not knowing and taking action, you give yourself space to feel actively engaged. About 75% of the court cases that have been overturned due to DNA, my glasses they're having a hard time going around this market. So, okay. About 75% of the court cases that have been overturned by DNA had a witness. Like those court witnesses, it is hard to sit back and know the true story of any situation you are witnessing. However, We do our best to understand ourselves and our feelings so that we can become fully active in our life choices.
Well, we're at the last of the 3 steps. During the other 2 steps of the 3 tenets, compassion is always there. However, compassion by definition is walking with someone who is happy or suffering. This is a crucial step that arises naturally in the practice of the 2 tenets, after the first 2 tenets. A compassionate action represents a healing response to suffering that is not based on a fixed and preconceived idea, but rather on an immediate felt reality of the situation. Compassion is a core value of Buddhism, and it transcends sympathy and empathy, with its aim to alleviate the suffering while fostering interconnectedness with true caring for another. Compassionate action within the 3 tenets is not premeditated upon ego, but flowing from a space of not knowing or letting go of fixed ideas and bearing witness, fully present with the joy or the suffering. Compassionate action is a healing response tailored specifically to the circumstance at hand, rather than a one-size-fits-all. Compassionate action is absolute, yet constantly changing, working with a full-hearted commitment to change while accepting the things that as they really, really are. Compassionate action does not always mean doing something in the traditional sense. Sometimes it is simply being present and doing absolutely nothing. Holding a person, sitting in silence, and being present. Compassionate action is also very self-nurturing. While done for others, this action also nurtures the self, preventing burnout by acting as a hollow reed or a path, a way, rather than struggling with ego. A compassionate person and compassionate action often involves a soft front, meaning openness and care, and a strong back, meaning courage with boundaries and integrity. Now that I have finished connecting the 3 tenets of not knowing, which prevents actions based on shoulds and prejudices and fixed ideas of how to help, or bearing witness, ensures the action is based on an intimate knowledge of suffering, not an abstract idea. But lastly, the continuous loop of compassionate action brings us back to not knowing, as we cannot know the final outcome of our actions. These tenets have been practiced and are skillful means to engage with social, environmental, and personal issues. And when in the fullness of time, the practice of the 3 tenets becomes a natural process of navigating through daily life without thinking. And now I get to extemporate. I have a very good friend of 45 years who is I call him my debate partner, the affirmative and the negative. I can call him and I pose questions to him, knowing full well it's not what I think, but I want to hear his answer. I'm always rewarded with this debate on subjects. He sees the other side. He has dementia now. We talk regularly, literally sometimes 3 times a day, not remembering that he'd called me already the 2 times before. But it's not like that every day. But I cherish those days too. But now he has cancer. And in his dyslexia, he ruminates over all kinds of things.
And so I'm taxed with starting at the very beginning each and every time I talk to him of not knowing, and I listen. I begin to understand, and I can bear witness, and then I can be compassionate. It's a lot like the movie Groundhog Day. You never know. And this example has brought me to a greater understanding of the three tenets and how they do work miracles. They work miracles in your life, and they keep you centered, and they keep you connected to all that is around us. Thank you very much.